Hey, so I'm Zac Arch, creator of Tot The Talented Otter. I am proud to have partnered with my wife, Hayley Arch, and illustrator Andrew Arcangeli, who is an absolute pleasure to work with. Tot, in short, is the story of a dyslexic otter who finds his superpower in his dyslexia, which turns out to be his outside the box thinking and storytelling abilities. I made this universe with the intent to encourage kids to think about what their superpower is and empower dyslexic children to realize that their dyslexia is not a weakness. In fact, it could be their superpower as well. And just to give them some kind of hope, confidence, and inspiration. I remember when I found out that I was dyslexic, I was really unsure of really even what that meant to me. And it took a large part of my life for me to realize that it was a strength and not a weakness, and that it set me up to actually think more creatively than most because I had to in order to learn. The characters in the book all are a huge piece of my life. They represent, my grandparents, my best friends, my wife, my sister. It means so much to me to have the book tangible and available and to be able to grow these characters. The second book is about my wife's superpower, which is her harnessing her anxiety to become a master planner and executor, which really makes a lot of sense because I wouldn't have been able to make the Tot The Talented Otter universe without my wife. Just like in the second book, Tot pitches Pip this idea for this grandiose treehouse. I honestly didn't know what kind of support we would get. I just know that I really wanted to make this book available. At first, we kind of considered it a marketing expense. I don't think we were planning on making any money. With the money that came in, we actually donated it to a youth empowerment nonprofit called Starfinder. My journey was both dyslexia related, and I was also defined by my experience with soccer. The teammates that I had and the friendships that I formed are also a large part of what molded me into who I am today. So it was really meaningful to be able to donate to place that I actually got to play soccer in high school. What Tot means to us is just generally being able to empower others, both by education and by creating a community, as well as using the money made from Tot to support nonprofits that are doing really amazing work. That's our mission, and we're fulfilling our purpose. We have 2 books in the barrel, and we're really excited for book number 2, which is about Pip, aka Hayley's story with anxiety, and how harnessing it became her superpower. So I'm really excited to continue the Tot universe and learn and grow with all of you. So thanks for reading if you have already, and if you haven't, I hope you do.
So I have helped with all of the creative and layout for Tot The Talented Otter on the website and the book itself. It's so exciting to take this idea and use our marketing prowess and be able to help spread the word about this project that I truly believe in wholeheartedly. I loved making the website because it was this extra step of taking all these pieces and illustrations that I've honestly just fallen in love with and integrating them in a medium that I'm really confident and comfortable in. So that was really fun. And in fact, all the marketing behind it has brought me that same sense of joy. I love Tot. I, of course, love Pip. Pip was made in my likeness, and as we continue to build the world of Tot The Talented Otter, Pip will have her own story and her own journey that I too, just like Tot, hope has the same impact on its readers. Also, we want to really grow out the education piece, right? We hope that through this world, we're able to connect with local schools and communities and share this story and these superpowers and empower children. And so we want that to come through on the website as well. As far as the community goes and the website goes, it's just, there's endless opportunity here. Tot The Talented Otter is a kid's book written by my husband, Zac Arch, and illustrated by our good friend, Andrew Arcangeli.
How quickly can you draw Tot?
You want me to draw a Tot like as quickly as I can?
I was always so impressed by the way that Andrew could go about cartooning. I love to do art, and I'm really good at recreating what's in front of me, but I'm so impressed by Andrew's ability to draw something completely and purely out of imagination, and his ability to recreate one character multiple times in all of these different scenes is just a testament to his creativity, honestly. We are constantly impressed by his ability to churn out drawings that match exactly what we had in our head, to the extent that we rarely have edits with his first submission because he just seems to have an exact fingerprint on this world we're trying to create. It's been so cool to work with him on this, genuinely. As you can see, we're rounding out to the end. That involves so much memory, so much skill, so much purpose in the creation of the character to be making shapes and lines that are repeatable. And I think it's really worth taking a moment to appreciate this skill, especially as things like AI come about. It's important to appreciate the people that can actually create this. We're going to live in a world full of digital content. It's nice to work with real creators. Pearled it in 1:40.
Yeah, that's Todd. I mean, he's rough though. That's the thing.
So, hello everyone. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday!
Yes. It's really crazy being back here. Feels like yesterday that I was the one sitting where all of you are sitting, walking through these halls, standing on the stage even. It's like a time machine. My mind is flooded with so many amazing memories of my time here. Are you guys still playing bombardment in gym class? That's what I thought. Best game. Best game.
I agree with you.
So I'm so excited to be here with all of you today to talk to you a little bit about my story. I know it's the end of the day on a Friday, and you're all probably super excited to get outside and start your weekend, so I'll make this short and sweet and leave some time for questions at the end, okay?
Okay.
So with all that said, you're probably wondering who I am. So let's get started. My name is Zac Arch, and I created Tot The Talented Otter. Tot is a children's book series with a one-of-a-kind augmented reality experience that I coded. You can simply scan the QR code in the book with your smartphone or tablet to unlock interactive elements, animated characters, and hidden surprises. Watch as Tot's world comes to life before your eyes, creating an unforgettable reading experience that will spark the imagination of children and adults alike. Tot has a very special superpower that helps him see the world differently. I want you all to take a moment to think about what your superpower is, or what you want it to be as you grow up. And when I say superpower, I don't mean super strength, speed, or invisibility, although that would be sweet, right? Yeah. I mean your strengths as a person and as a student. Here's a tip if you can't think of anything. What do you feel most confident doing? What subject in school comes most naturally to you? You don't need to answer out loud, but I want you to think about that question through the course of this presentation, and maybe on Monday you can all tell one another what your superpowers are. My superpower is creativity. I use it to tell stories and help other businesses do the same. You see, Tot's story mirrors my own journey. I grew up dyslexic, and at a young age, I was pretty insecure about my learning difference. I felt scared that I wasn't able to keep up with my classmates and confused that the hurdles I was dealing with were not universal or even relatable for most of the kids around me. I look back to a time in kindergarten when I tried to remember the words to the book we were reading so that I could participate when it was my turn to read aloud. I did that so I could hide the fact that I was struggling to read at the level my classmates were. And I didn't want anyone to know. I used to skip words when I was writing and flip letters when I was reading. At the first school I went to, it felt like I was the only one who was having trouble, and that made me anxious. I just got so excited about the sentences I was writing that I would leave out words because I said the sentence in my head faster than I could spell it. I was fortunate to have parents that took early notice and found a school that would help me learn in a way that was more tailored to my needs. That school was Benchmark. At first I was a little bit confused about why I was switching schools. I was asking my parents things like, am I different? Is something wrong with me? They reassured me that nothing was wrong with me. They told me I had dyslexia, and that Benchmark was one of the best schools in the country for kids who have it. And I can tell you that's the truth. It was here that I was taught by some incredible teachers. Dr. Gaskins, Mr. Riker, Miss Kress, Miss Scott, Miss Vicock, Miss Sands. Yes, they all deserve a standing ovation. Miss Ostertag, Miss Audley, Miss O'Donnell, Miss Riesinger, Miss Wonderland, Miss Smith, Dr. Gensmer, Dr. Lemish, Mr. McCorkle, Dr. McDonald, to name a few. Every single one of them helped me and ultimately changed my life for the better. You see, these teachers and this school taught me to think outside the box. Even now, at 31 years old, wow, I find myself using the tools I learned here. When I came to Benchmark in first grade, one of the first phrases I learned stuck with me to this day. Take what you know to figure out what you don't know. I'll say that again. Take what you know to figure out what you don't know. I repeated to myself over and over again The phrase is simple, but its impact is massive. It was my GPS, my compass, my bat signal that helped me find a way when I got lost. If I encountered a word that I didn't know how to spell or pronounce, all I had to do was step back, take a breath, and think about what I did know and apply it to figure out the things that I didn't. That tool, that way of thinking, changed my life. Do you know why? Because it made me comfortable enough to speak out when I didn't understand something. It helped me advocate for myself and for the way that I learn. You see, if we admit that we don't understand something, we're really saying we're open to learning something new. And that's actually really exciting. If you think about it, life would be pretty boring if we already knew everything and had nothing to learn. Once that clicked for me, my entire world changed. It was here at Benchmark that I realized my learning difference can actually be the key to unlocking my superpower. See, I told you I was going to make you think about your superpower. That's because it's my belief that every single person has one. Sometimes your superpower changes over the course of your life as you grow and evolve. My first superpower was soccer, thanks to Mr. Riker. Now it's creativity and storytelling. Some people figure out their superpowers early. For others, they come a little bit later, and that's totally fine. Did you know that some of the greatest thinkers and storytellers in the history of the world have dyslexia? That dyslexia inspired their superpowers. People like Albert Einstein, Steven Spielberg, Richard Branson, John Lennon, Tom Holland, Keanu Reeves, Orlando Bloom, Salma Hayek, Jennifer Aniston, Whoopi Goldberg, Anthony Hopkins. The list goes on. It's even said that Leonardo da Vinci was dyslexic. Now, some of those names might not be familiar to you because they're from different generations, but I promise they're extremely impressive human beings. But Tom Holland, aka Spider-Man, is pretty cool, isn't he? Yeah, that's right. Even Spider-Man was dyslexic. With the help of some amazing teachers and friends, I discovered my superpower right here at Benchmark. And I know you will all find yours too. I came out of the school with the tools I needed to be successful and the confidence that I was intelligent. I see the world differently, and that can sometimes feel a little scary. But when I embraced my creativity, storytelling, and outside-the-box thinking, I was more than appreciated. I was celebrated. I knew that my learning difference could be an advantage if I flexed it correctly, and over the years I did just that. The more I was just myself, the more people appreciated my skill set. After playing soccer for Temple University, I started 3 businesses with my amazing wife. We now work on creative storytelling through marketing for businesses around the world. I've used my superpower to write 3 books, a TV show, and a magazine that is built to help other businesses grow their brands and tell their stories as well. I owe so much of that success to this school and the amazing teachers in it. I am so thankful that I got to go to school here. And I'm so proud to be dyslexic. I created this book to tell you that you should be proud too. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. So please, take it from me. If you embrace your uniqueness, you can find your superpower. Thank you.
Good question, man.
When I draw Tot, there's certain rules to the character. His glasses always maintain this shape. There's never a time where I draw Tot's glasses any other way. So I'll show you what the side profile looks like. So here we have Tot's side profile. His glasses should look like that from the side. You shouldn't ever be able to see his eye if you turn that way and you see the glasses. But I always draw it this way because I want kids who are reading the book to always be engaged with Tot. Like his eyes always, you can always see his eye and his facial expression very clearly. His facial expression here is kind of obscured. Like you can see him smiling, but you don't really know what he's thinking because you can't see his eyes. He could be thinking anything. Like he could be really focused or really afraid. But here you kind of see him at least sort of engaged, and it shows kids that like that's the Tot face that I remember. So the glasses never ever really take any other shape besides this. This is always the shape that they take. It's sort of this it looks like a jar. So if I was ever to make like a how-to guide for Tot, the jars are always sort of his glasses. He always has a cleft lip because he's an animal. And every character in the Tot universe that's a mammal. Their mouth usually looks like that. Now there are exceptions. So Phoebe's a horse, and horses don't have a cleft lip. So her smile and face is just sort of like that. It's just a regular smile. But for dogs, cats, mice, anything that sort of has that feature to it.
The moment I met Andrew, I knew that this kid had a crazy talent. So fast forward maybe 7 years later after we met at Temple, when I told this kid in our marketing class, I said, we're going to work together on something. And he laughed at me and he said, yeah, man, let's do it. And we had completely separate careers. And there was a moment there where it kind of seemed like, I was working a lot of corporate content. We started getting more into the healthcare consulting marketing and kind of wasn't sure if there was going to be an overlap. I had been writing my script for a TV show for a while, but that was live action, trying to figure out where the imagination scene, somewhere where I was going to work with Andrew, etc. And then we got really into Giphy for our clients and for ourselves. It just it's a good platform to be on, point blank. Shout out, we have 103 million views on our Giphy for Outside the Box Consultants. But our first project that we worked with Andrew on was a Giphy slash kind of like a business icon. And he made us a little mascot for our Outside the Box consulting firm. And I loved it. He also made a really cool like superhero bee that we used for the Bee Foundation and their Giphy. At that moment, I was like, cool, if this is it, then this is it. But it was awesome that we collaborated. And then boom, I remember I was going down to the shore with my wife, Hayley, aka Pip, and we were driving down and I said, I think I want to make a kid's book about a dyslexic otter named Tot. And Tot was important to me because Tot backwards is still Tot. Same thing where Yawa backwards is away. Like I just kind of want to speak to flipping letters and flipping words and be proud of it and actually be creative with it. Think outside the box as a result of it. And Haley instantly, classic with all my ideas, was like, cool that you want to do that, but like how? Let's make a plan. Of course, Pip's character, same thing. Pip reversed is Pip, and Tot can't achieve his goals really without Pip. Zac can't achieve his goals without Hayley. It's been this like really fun, awesome partnership over the years through the businesses that Hayley and I have created. It was almost my way of speaking to Benchmark. It was interesting because I had won their alumni award and it was the first time that I got to speak at Benchmark. I didn't do bad, but I definitely didn't do my best. I was just so caught up in the emotion of the moment, being back there, the emotion of the award, seeing the teachers, understanding the passing of time. It was just like a lot. And I remember I kind of felt like I fumbled the presentation. And ever since that moment, I was like, I need to actually say thank you. And in many ways, Tot was that. Getting back to Benchmark and being able to actually talk to those kids, I can't even really put that into words, genuinely. I mean, they were so receptive. It was the end of the day. I've sat in those seats as a child, and there was no way that I would want to have listened to a presentation. And so many of the kids told me what their superpowers were. A couple of the kids asked me if I was only dyslexic, and I was able to say, no, listen, bud, like I have ADD too, and you can do it. Getting to the point where we had the book written and then being able to tell Andrew what these characters were. I called him on the phone one day. I was just like, listen, man, I think I'm about to make a kid's book. I would love for you to illustrate it. He made the time for us. And I had to send him a write-up of what animal each character was, what their name was, and a general description on their vibe and or interest so that he could almost fit the mold that I had in my brain. I was able to tell him about kind of like how important Pip was to Tot's journey and adventures, and the way that Andrew formed both Tot and Pip is just so cool. I mean, when we were talking to him about the small ins and outs and details of the hair and how you make each character, it was so cool to see how much thought he put into it because it mirrored the amount of thought that Hayley and I put into it. And I was like, perfect partnership.
Tot and Pip have the same hair. They have those same 3 spikes. Yep. It's just that Tots go up and Pips go to the side.
No, dude, actually, I don't think you did mention that.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome.
That's how I kind of wanted to make them
like have that similarity.
Visually similar, yeah. So you can so kids go like, oh, that's Tot and Pip. Ooh, and not just like these 2 like completely random characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so her head design's a little more complex because Tot's eyebrows will never be interrupted by his hair. Okay. His ear will be interrupted. Like you can't see the ear here, but his hair will always remain the same. With Pip, it's different. She doesn't have glasses. So her eyes are sort of framed by her eyelashes to let children know that she's supposed to be a feminine character. Another trait of traditionally feminine characters is that they have a lot of hair, but she also has this really big, sort of substantial hair that's actually like more notable and wild than Tot's. You always, when you're drawing her, you have to think pineapple. Her hair actually does interrupt her eyebrows. So you'll see like a glimpse of her eyebrow, but you won't see it as clearly as you see Tot's. So what does that do? That just is supposed to emphasize the hair in her face and make her look more feminine. She has a very small nose. Most of the characters do, but I try and really make her nose small. And I try and make her eye line just like a little darker sometimes to sort of give that, not mascara look, but emphasize the eyelashes. Her outfit's way easier to draw. Because with Tot, I always have to remember, like, he has the watch on one hand and then he's got the beads on the other hand. But Pip is really easy. She just kind of has this gown. And then she has the super easiest shoes of all time, which are just shiny and red because Tot is very blue. So together, you know,
Very complimentary.
yeah, they make purple and they're that complementary sort of idea.
Pretty much approved the character list immediately. I mean, the way he did my parents, my grandparents, my best friends. My dad looks like my dad when he's performing, and like that's so sweet. And my mom. But it was special for me to know that I have this like extreme attachment to these characters because they are based on my family and my wife and my best friends.
Even though we put so much into the characters and character descriptions and our perception of what that would look like, it's so cool throughout the whole book that, you know, we just put words to a page, but he brought these characters to life that we love and have, you know, connections with.
Check out the rough sketch I got from Andrew for my kids' book, Tot The Talented Otter. This is Tot, basically me. This is Pip, Hayley, my wife. And this is Miss Bright, the teacher that changed my life and made me realize that dyslexia was a superpower. That was Phoebe, a best friend. And this is my friend Christian. It's my dad. He's a bit of a songbird. Played John Lennon his whole life. That's my mom. She's like one of the best people ever. This is Ralph, my grandfather. Lois, his wife. And this is Tommy, my grandfather on my other side. And Mary, my nana on my other side. This is Martin, my best friend Ian. And this is Rebecca, my awesome sister. And then he sent me page 1 and 2 rough sketches. And he just gets me. This is the close-up. You can see that Tot's having trouble reading and, you know, discovering that his dyslexia is a superpower will come soon. So the scene is unfolding, and I just love what Andrew's done.
I think for us, this whole project, and in fact, our whole career has just been, you know, trying to find this path towards happiness or whatever that means, but tie that to being fulfilled and feeling fulfilled in your life, in your career, in our love, and all of those things. And so to have all of this, you know, the first step was always just, okay, would this make us happy, right? Zac wants to write a book. This is his vision. He thinks it would be cool because that's something he would have wanted as a kid. Let's lead with that. Okay, yeah, let's do it. What does that look like? How do we make it happen? And then we do it, we make it happen. And we say to each other, if this gets no farther than just a book the two of us enjoy, then it was worth it. And that's so cool. And how cool has this process been? And then people bought it and they loved it. And they sent us pictures of them with their kids reading it. And we thought, wow, how cool is that? If this makes it no further than that, this has been so much fun and we've loved it and enjoyed it. And so, you know, I feel like I have no idea how big this could be or how far it could go or how many lives it could touch, but I'm happy.
The thing about Tot is, at least when I draw him or how I read him in Zac's script, is that he's a character that's very guided by imagination, which was sort of how I was as a kid. As down to earth as he is and as likable as he is, he's always thinking about something or trying to imagine something. And the way that you do that with cartooning is that you give your character's eyes a direction. So, for example, he's looking up and out. He's trying to imagine something that he can't see. That's why his eyes are looking the way they are in this drawing. If you draw a character where their eyes are just sort of defaulted, he sort of looks very fish-like. You know, he's just kind of looking at you or not anywhere. It almost looks like he's zoning out. When you give the character an eye direction, you give them a thought. And as a viewer, you go, oh, I can relate to that thought. With the stars around him and him kind of looking up to the left, he's thinking about something. Typically, whenever I draw her, she's looking at Tot, or Tot is looking at her. In pretty much every illustration that they're together, one of these two things is going on. Usually they're not looking in different directions, but there are exceptions. In the second book, Tot is explaining what he wants to do with the treehouse, and they're both looking up at his dream bubble that he's explaining. And I wanted it to be, well, Tot's looking up at his dream bubble with confidence because he can see what he's creating. But Pip is looking up with anxiety because there's anxiety in her ear. If you look in the illustrations of Tot and Pip, whenever Pip is by herself, I never add blush to her face. She just has flat color here and just these little cheek lines that I add to every single character. But every single time these two characters are together, I add blush to their face. So Tot, it's the same rule. So no blush here because he's by himself. There's blush here because he's next to Pip. I always wanted that to be sort of like a thing because when you go back and read these and you really think about the story and universe as a whole, there should always be little details that people catch subliminally where they go, oh, well, the person who made this put a lot of thought into it. And yeah, even in the story where he's just imagining Pip, he's blushing.
And it was just so funny because as he's going through and telling us about it, and he's talking about how Pip and Tot, anytime they're in a frame together, blush. And then as he's saying that, I'm blushing, looking at Zac, thinking, how special is this, right?
If you ever look at kids' shoes, kids don't really have much of a foot that projects out from their body.
Right.
Their foot is kind of short and stubby. Yeah. So like I kind of tried to make him have a kid's foot as well. With coloring Tot, the one thing that I want to point out with every character in the Tot universe, big head, short neck, small neck. And that's sort of to replicate the body of a child. Children have this really big head in proportion to their body, which is kind of what makes them fall over all the time. Just walk through of Tot's colors. Sky blue, to me, has always been this sort of head clearing color next to white, because I think white represents the color that has the most potential. Light blue is the second most potential to me. It really replicates that idea of looking up into a sky on those magical days where there are no clouds. And you just kind of marvel at like how blue the atmosphere is. I wanted to make him have that feeling where he's just sort of, you look at him and you feel relaxed. And you're a very chill, relaxed guy, man. I remember, when I first met you at school, we were just kind of going through classes together. I want him to look kind of calm and chill, but I want kids to look at him and know, like, this guy could play sports. Like, this guy for sure, if you put a basketball or a soccer ball in front of him, like, he's all over it.
I feel that with the shoes, too.
Yeah,
I really like the shoes.
That's why I went hard on the shoes. I was just like, what would be the Tot universe equivalent of Nike or Adidas? And then I kind of made that. So I guess in his universe, it would be called Bolt instead of Nike.
Yeah.
And it all has lightning bolts. And if you notice, I'll show you in like the books, a lot of characters have the same brand shoe with the lightning bolt on it. It's just different colors. Lois, she has Tot shoes, but they're just in white. So yeah, I wanted to make the shoes purple because Tot plus Pip equals purple. I want kids to look at his shoes and be like,
I want those.
Yeah. It's like, yo, those shoes are cool, man. Like,
well,
dude, yeah, that's why I have the lightning bolt on. It's like, bro, those shoes are cool. And I just thought, like, I'm not going to draw him with the G-Shock, but the same sort of bulky watch on him looks cool.
So just kind of like a couple interesting things of note that I wanted to mention throughout the process, because a lot of my friends have asked me, like, you guys self-published. What's that process? A lot more to it than I guess I would have expected. Maybe I was super naive going into it, but getting an SIBN number, making sure that you have the copyright, going through the processes with BookBaby, which, by the way, I got to plug BookBaby. They have been incredible to work with. I've pretty much anyone that I've spoken to from customer support interacts with us the way that I feel that Hayley and I do with our clients, and we always try to make sure that we lead with kindness first, and they have that same energy, and I really appreciate it. Going through the submission process with them was actually just a learning curve on our part. It was a hill. So proud to have climbed it, because for printing Pip, I'm like really excited to come in as a veteran and like know how to get that done quickly and have our templates already made. It was kind of the same thing with Yawa magazine. We had to go to the beach when we were printing volume 23 because I pretty much went crazy on the submission process. I say all this to say, just like Tot and Pip, it's always an adventure. It's always a journey. There's always a hard part, and there's always a beautiful part. Looking back now, I appreciate all those moments.
These sort of prayer beads that I got from Japan that have like a Buddhist origin, Tot also wears the same ones. I spent 5 hours drawing this, which is uncharacteristically long, but I wanted to draw the characters as clean as possible for the cover and really try and make them as proportionate and as accurate to the original design as I could. What you want to do with characters when you have them in a group shot is you want to draw them all in a way that shows their unique personality. None of them should be doing the same pose at all. Everyone should have their own pose, and their pose should be different. So you don't ever want to draw characters with a similar silhouette or shadow. But I was proud when I drew this because I was like, I made them look all different enough, but they all seem like they're from the same series. They all seem like they're from the same thing. And so I was like, this is a pretty tight crew. And I immediately like imagined sort of like a movie, like this would be a great movie poster. Well, you said something to me, man, when we were on a call one time. You were like, I love consistency, or I love when things like have sort of uniformity. So I was like, every series in the Tot universe should have all the characters from that book in the back, the biggest one in the back doing this, or some version of like, yeah. And then the two main characters or one main character jumping, and you add a sort of transparent white outline around that main character to just make sure that they pop out from the pack. So as we get into the book, this house and this sort of aesthetic of the first page is very much inspired by Banjo and Kazooie, which is an old Nintendo 64 video game that a lot of people our age probably played. It was very wooden, and it starred sort of a bear and a bird that lived in his backpack. And I always remember that the house that they lived in was, it was like a regular house. It had like a TV and a video game system, but it was almost like they were living inside of a tree house, or it was more, I guess, evident that the house was made out of wood. So I kind of wanted that back there, the sort of Banjo-Kazooie style house. And I drew this fish, and I was just like, you know what? Every single time we're by the river, this fish should be there. You really see the fish's face in Pip's book. And then we get to the classroom scene. We're sort of front lit, and I wanted the shadows to sort of perceive that these characters are closer to the camera, but also to kind of create this fear and unease. Like Tot's face is uncharacteristically shadowed here, and that's because he's experiencing the most negative emotion I think he experiences in the whole series. Yeah. In contrast, I wanted to make the other two characters very confident about their ability to understand good morning on the board. Right. Pip to the point where she's even raising her hand. But Tot is lost, and this sort of loss gives him this universal sad expression is like the eyebrow going up in this way. So this is sort of Tot's big revelation, where he realizes that he has the attention of an adult, but an adult that's like willing to help him, which is probably something that you experienced in your life, man. 100%. An adult that's just like, hey, I want to help you do well, and is showing him special attention. And over here, I kind of wanted this idea of Tot sees himself as a superhero or someone who's capable of doing super things, which is a very important thing to teach children. Like you're not just capable of the everyday normal things like, counting to 10 or learning to tie your shoes, but you're capable of so much more. Like you're so much potential. And of course, Tot's jumping outside of a box, which is indicative of your country. I mean, your company. It's indicative of your company and your studio. Yep. And I wanted to do that. But I also wanted everything that surrounds Tot in this moment to be sort of like crayon illustrations, because that's sort of how I represent kids' imagination artistically.
This is one of my favorite pages in the book. What is your favorite drawing in the book?
In this book? I really like that one. Let me just check to see.
And then Hayley, I want to know yours too.
It's
to me, the creativity and the outside the box are my two faves.
It's this one right here. I really liked just kind of how moody the lighting is, and but it's sort of, to me, this picture is a little emotional because I think about all the times as a kid where I looked into the sky and I watched fireworks, and that was incredible. Like your whole heart swells up watching these fireworks, and you're like, wow. And as an adult, you're kind of jaded and you watch fireworks and you're like, oh, that's cool, you know, or like another year has passed, or, you know, it's 4th of July. Of course, there's going to be fireworks. But as a kid, like you're enraptured by the simplest things. Like when you go to an aquarium and you see a giant fish, you're like, whoa, look at that giant fish. You know, when you see a car fly fast down the street, you're like, wow, it's amazing. When you see explosions in the sky, it's the same thing. And this illustration brought me back to, I guess, how I used to view the world with a more or the less jaded perspective, and sort of a natural wonderment that children seem to have. Yeah. And that's why I like this picture a lot. I also like this page because it's a bit of foreshadowing. I mean, Phoebe's looking up into the sky, and she has the glasses. So I almost like to think of the third book as sort of like a prequel.
Yep.
Because I start her off in the third book not in the pilot uniform.
Right.
When she becomes the pilot, she puts it on.
Interesting.
So at this point, she has already had that experience. The third book is actually a prequel because she's dressed up like the pilot.
Oh, I love that.
And she's looking into the sky with her arms raised because, well, you know, she knows what it is to fly at this point. I'm super excited. The top verse, as I've called it in my computer files, organizing everything. Whole idea of they call it wacky palm in the art world, which is wacky postmodern. If you remember Kids Pix, the computer software for kids, it kind of had this whole aesthetic, this art aesthetic of like swirling shapes and lightning bolts, and it's very polygonal and geometrical. To me, that was the era where I was the most inspired about the world. And so I tried to put those sort of aesthetic things above Tot in this moment, but also just the fact that it's all emanating from him. Like it's all emanating from him. And she's just kind of sitting back in this moment. Like even her body language is like, all right, now it's your turn. Like, show me what you got. I showed you how to use this. Now you do it. Even like her wings are out, like, all right, your turn. And he's just boom, like all of his ideas are coming out from his head, and he's becoming confident, which I think for any artistic or creative kid is something that's very important. You know, I'm very fortunate that I came from a background where my parents were very supportive of my ideas and my dreams and my sort of artistic endeavors. But I know a lot of people who not only didn't get that support, but they were shouted in the opposite direction. Like, oh, you shouldn't do this. Or, this is stupid. Or this is just something that kids do. And that's like the worst thing that you could do to a kid. The very worst is try to shout down their ideas or reduce their excitement about the world.
Yep.
So she is doing this thing where she is behind him, protective of him, but she's also just letting him be a kid. And that sort of magic that's coming out of his mind and that's coming out of the light bulbs is all of his ideas, his confidence, his imagination. And yeah, more of the superhero motif, right? Tot's wearing a light blue shirt, and it just so happens that Superman's outfit is also light blue.
Had to do it.
Yeah. So if he was going to draw a comparison to any one, it would be Superman, who also is the most iconic of any superhero.
100%.
So it just works well for this illustrative example. And it just, you could easily see it. You could see Tot in the superhero outfit. And I'll talk to you real quick about the text thing that I mentioned.
Yep.
So here on this page, we see Tot see himself as a superhero. It's very common for children, especially male children, to see themselves as Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. So in this page, we establish Tot sees himself as a superhero at this point. Now that we get to this page, the way that Tot is moving as all these other characters observe him, as he's going to tell his friends the stories that he has in his mind. If you notice, the pose that he's striking is very superhero. He has his chin up, his chest is all the way out. He's extending his body, which is showing confidence. His body language is showing like, hey, I'm taking up a lot of space. And in his mind, he's walking like a superhero would walk, just throwing like his fists in front of him. His eyes are shut, his chin is out. So in his mind, because his eyes are closed, he's thinking about how he perceives himself. What he sees is essentially a superhero walking. He's no longer Tot walking. He's Superman walking.
Yeah.
And everyone around him recognizes that new confidence. And they're all looking at him like, oh, man, oh, I see Tot. What are you going to tell us today, Tot? Yo, what kind of story you got for us? And he's like, hey, man, watch me strut my super stuff. I'm about to show you guys my superpower. I hope that every kid gets to feel that at some point in their life. This is the first page of the Phoebe book, and a lot of the color style sort of comes from Rebecca Sugar's work on Steven Universe. There's a lot of sunsets and sunrises in that show, and just try to get some of that color in there. Like you can even see like the water is like really light pink. The further away it is from the mountain, and the closer that the water is to the mountain, the darker it is. You know, it's got this big shadow and these blue glimmers of light and this pink glimmer of light. So just try to make it look as bright as possible so that when Phoebe's running, she really stands out. This page is pretty quick to work on. Whenever you have environmental elements that don't have faces or bodies, you can just kind of draw them any way you want. But because, you know, Phoebe is a specifically designed character, like her hair has to look the same in every single thing. Her ears have to be in the same spot. But like drawing a tree has less rules.
Right.
You can just draw it however you want.
So how long did this one take you?
So right now we're 35 minutes in.
Oh, it says.
Yeah. Or 38 minutes in. If I had to guess right now, looking at the bar, maybe like an hour and some change this one took me. Again, because it's an environmental shot, it's a lot quicker to draw.
So how many times have you gone to this convention that you're going to? Is this
OtakuCon, this is my second OtakuCon.
okay?
This one I'm super excited because I got two books. I got Tot and then I got Stargirl. And then
Stargirl's amazing, by the way.
thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's a very, very personal story.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it looks like that was an hour and 17 minutes. Just gonna make it in there. And I'll say we got kind of like a little truck here. A lot of times if I'm not paying attention, I'll just kind of like color it in like this because I'm so used to doing traditional art. And this feels like very satisfying to me. Like in my brain, I'm going, okay, I'm not missing like any white spots.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do this a lot in digital art, you'll never finish anything. So what you're supposed to do is, you know, just make sure your outline is really clean and then just
Tap tools?
yeah, just let this do the rest. But when I'm talking and drawing at the same time, which like last night, when I have friends over and we're all drawing together, I'm usually just like doing this and they're like, oh, it's going to take forever. The important thing to remember is the sun is coming up in this shot, right? So the sun emits orange or yellow light. So you're going to make the bottom of the gradient orange and then the top darker because there's a darker part of the sky that the sun isn't in yet. So it's like dark up here and then bright up here. So when it comes to gradients, you just have to remember where your light source is coming from. Our light source is coming from the bottom and going up to the top. I'll just recreate the sunset. Get like a big airbrush tool, and then make the size like pretty big. Kind of go across like that. Now you have like your dark layer of like where the light source is absent. This middle layer is where the light source is about to creep in, and this bottom layer is as strong light source as you can make it without making it look ridiculous.
Nice.
So here it's kind of like, all right, it's layered. It just doesn't look natural.
Right.
If you want to like really dive into some more details, which I typically don't do with Tot, I try to keep it like cartoony.
Yep.
You could add like little highlights. So that's like sun rays, the sky, the darkness of night. And now it's kind of, it almost looks like a cake or like a candy. And then what's great about Photoshop and most digital illustration tools is you can go to this magic wand, you can hit Gaussian blur, and then just allow the computer to blur it together. So that's like a smooth gradient, you know?
It's so funny. I have always called it Gaussian.
It probably is Gaussian.
No, it's probably Gaussian, dude. It's so funny.
We'll figure it out today. So yeah, I like the way that this looks.
The one thing that obviously you know this that I'm obsessed with about your art is your ability to take simple things and make them look so perfect.
Yeah, that's what cartooning is. So any sort of cartooning book or resource will tell you that like you shouldn't spend a lot of time on the characters. You make them look as simple as possible. You make the backgrounds look more complex because there's something eye-catching about a very oversimplified and minimalistic character walking through a complex and realistic background. It draws your attention to it.
Does it mean a lot to you, the idea of someone redrawing your characters, like learning from you in that way?
I'd be humbled. You know, I think that's really cool. I always hope that when a kid sees a character, they get excited. Like that's a big thing. Like my niece, she just got a copy of Tot.
I saw that.
And yeah, and I hope that when I visit her again, And my buddy goes, hey, like, this is Uncle Drew. Like, he drew this book that she'll talk to me about Tot and, say things about that character.
Yeah.
So I always hope that, like, the characters I draw stick in the minds of whoever's reading it.
Yep.
But is it important for me for them to try and draw them? Only if they want to. My niece really loves to draw, so I'm sure she'll try her hand at drawing Tot. Yeah.
Do you teach her sometimes?
She's too young. I kind of just let her like play with the iPad.
Yeah.
But she's learning. She's getting there.